I know one of the guys who was kicked out of the Pentagon last week, a guy named Dan Caldwell. And he is someone who I vehemently disagree with on a lot of very, very important issues. But I've known him for over 10 years. And despite all of those really important disagreements about things like the way the veterans' healthcare system works, I find Dan Caldwell to be an honorable person. And I personally find it very suspicious that he and some of his colleagues, who are Pete Hegseth's closest advisors and have been for a decade plus, find it very, very weird that they're among the ones who are purged. And I'll admit my bias out front. I think this is Elon Musk driven. If it is not Elon Musk driven, I think it is likely driven from the more pro-war camp, or pro-interventionalists. I know Dan and his colleagues from Concerned Veterans for America, which is what Pete Hegseth used to be the executive director of. In a prior version of Concerned Veterans America, before they were most interested in trying to dismantle the VA, again, disagree a lot with Dan on this. Before it was CVA, Pete Hegseth ran a group called Vets for Freedom, which was a just rabidly pro-Iraq war group. It was a group that, led by Hegseth, would attack anti-war veterans like myself and a lot of my colleagues. Now, when Dan became part of Concerned Veterans for America, he was on part of their government affairs or legislative staff, and that's how I interacted with him. First, as an individual, independent advocate, a student veteran at the time looking to get laws passed to help myself and my fellow veterans. Now, Concerned Veterans for America basically pushes the idea that the Department of Veterans Affairs is inherently broken, it is irreparable, and it must be destroyed, dismantled. The way that they pitch this is veterans should have absolute choice and they should get healthcare anywhere that they want. But in practical terms, this doesn't work because the private healthcare system is A, not designed for veterans and the many needs that we have in our healthcare, and B, it's just far, far, far more expensive. So the ultimate goal, maybe not of Concerned Veterans for America's individual advocates, but for their funders, their goal is to reduce the tax burden on billionaires. That's the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, like Dan, are anti-interventionalist, meaning that they would prefer not to send troops to war. They're much more of the free market, traditional Republican types. And while I don't agree with their ideology, I think that it's at least logically sound. Now, personally, I think that Hegseth got involved with Concerned Veterans for America primarily because he saw it as a paycheck and a platform that he could use to grow his personal brand. Being a guest on Fox News representing this veterans group, Concerned Veterans for America, which was funded by the Kochs, led to him getting a spot on Fox News, which led to him getting his show and really building out this conservative right-wing brand. And though he eventually did rebrand himself as this guy who's skeptical of the war, I'm never going to forget, because I was there when his group, Veterans for Freedom, was attacking and trying to personally destroy any veteran who spoke out against the Iraq war that I served in. During the Trump administration, I was working at Vietnam Veterans America, a major congressionally chartered veteran service organization. And when Trump won, Concerned Veterans for America kind of aligned with Trump because they saw him as a way to privatize the VA or give veterans choice. But Concerned Veterans for America didn't wholeheartedly endorse the Trump platform. They kept them at arm's length, except when it came to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, despite our major and very fundamental and important differences, I have always respected Dan Caldwell. I have always thought that he is a good person. He is an honest person. Just that our beliefs do not align, that they are adamantly opposed. But in his heart of hearts, I think Dan is a good person. And frankly, I was absolutely shocked when I heard that he was led out of the Pentagon by security last week. Now, Dan and I haven't talked in years, but I think that he is a fundamentally good and honest person. Now, another person from the sphere is this guy called John, I think it's Uyalat or something like that. He was at the Department of Veterans Affairs during the first Trump administration. I personally don't like the guy. I think he's a piece of shit. Then he got a job at the Pentagon, and he was the guy who was like, really bragging that Hegseth removed Jackie Robinson, the history of, the baseball player who was a veteran. Like, he removed that from the Pentagon. And he was like, yeah, Jackie Robinson is a DEI hire or some crazy racist shit. Again, I think John's a piece of shit. But he just wrote an op-ed in Politico where he's talking about this purge of all of Hegseth's most longtime and loyal advisors. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And I think this is one of those times for John. So if you want to read that piece, go to Politico and their opinion pages. But bringing this back to the beginning, to see Dan Caldwell pushed out like this, along with a couple of his colleagues, people who I know to be among Hegseth's longest term and most loyal advisors, I think that's highly, highly suspicious. And while I don't have any inside knowledge, knowing these people as I do, I can think of only two reasons why Dan would be pushed out this way. One is because of Elon Musk and some sort of corrupt intent that Elon Musk has, and he's trying to get rid of people who Hegseth trusts. Or number two, Dan and his colleagues are being pushed out by a more pro-war, pro-interventionist, and frankly, pro-war crime contingent that gets to where Pete Hegseth really came from in his days of Vets for Freedom. So what do you think? Why do you think that the purge is happening at the Pentagon? Why do you think that Hegseth's advisors are getting pushed out? And who do you think is responsible for it? Let me know in the comments, and do me a favor and hit the buttons wherever they are, like, follow, share, and let's get to the bottom of this.